Welcome and thank you for joining me in our continued journey through the complete soul. Let's begin by moving into part 1 of the body-soul connection. This segment is based on the ideas I presented in chapter 2 of the complete soul. When you see the reflection of yourself in a still pool of water, you're seeing two things. The most obvious is your body. The not so obvious is the part of you that occupies and animates your body, your soul. You don't actually see this part, but you see from it. If your soul was absent, you wouldn't see anything. There's that at which you are looking, the body, and there's that which is doing the looking, the soul. In our earlier illustration of the glass and the water, the glass represents the body. The water represents the soul. Our body is temporal. Our soul is eternal. The soul is currently expressing through the body, this earthly vehicle. We have a body, but we are the soul. The soul is timeless, eternal. The body is subject to time, space, gravity, all the many laws that govern the realm of matter. We saw that the amount of time the water spins in the glass has no impact on the age of the water. If we say the glass of water is 3 years old, we're referring to how long the water has been in the glass. The water itself is ageless. Ideally, we would think of ourselves in the same way. When someone asked your age, you could truthfully say, "I'm eternal." And yet, for practical reasons, we've been conditioned to think of ourselves in terms of how long our soul has occupied our present body. We say, "I'm 12, I'm 60. I'm a child, I'm an adolescent, I'm middle-aged, I'm a senior, I'm a baby boomer, I'm a millennial." We're responding to the question of age from our body-based self-image. Our identity, our I, has shifted from the water to the glass. We start thinking of the soul as something we have, not as something we are. Some metaphysical teachings hold that the individual is spirit, soul, and body, that without a body we're incomplete. We lose the body because we've bought into the belief in old age and death. We're told that the body need not be subject to material laws, that there's really no reason for any of us to get ill or even to get older. Some even suggest that we should be able to live in the body forever, that the cells of the body are capable of perpetual regeneration. The fact that we lose the body harkens back to the allegorical account of Genesis, where Adam and Eve, disobedient to a command of God, were cast out of the Garden of Eden, clothed in the skins of animals, and forced into a life of hardship. I was trained to think that the condition of the body reflects the condition of the soul. If your body is sick or handicapped in some way, there's work to be done at the soul level. But this is like trying to give the glass the same properties as the water. I've since come to understand that the body is a reflection, not of the soul, but of the body-based self-image. The self-image, constantly reacting to the ever-changing landscape of our material environment, goes through all kinds of stress and mood swings that impact the body. We give so much attention to the body that we shift our identity from the water to the glass. The universe, as we understand it, revolves around that reflection in the pool. That which sees the reflection, the soul, is lost in the waves that ripple over the surface of our pool. The problem with doing this is that we tend to measure our spiritual progress by the condition of the body. We imagine the soul will improve with time spent in more study and lessons learned from the challenges of our earthly life. Equating the condition of the soul with the condition of the body has caused us to believe our soul, our spiritual essence, is presently incomplete. The concept of soul evolution is a derivation of this belief. According to this view, if the body is expressing disease and limitation of any kind, it's because a similar condition exists within the soul. We're paying a price at the physical level for a spiritual condition in need of correction. We know that a person can display a perfect body and still remain spiritually asleep. We see examples of this in everything from our professional athletes to our Hollywood stars, where a perfectly sculptured body is mandatory, but where public lifestyles bring into question the whole notion of spiritual integrity. Likewise, a person can be spiritually awake, yet still afflicted with a physical malady or handicap of some sort. Who could doubt that the soul of a Helen Keller or a Stephen Hawking is much greater than their bodies might suggest? While we may not think of either of these people as spiritual giants, both provide an excellent example of how an imperfect or handicapped body in no way implies a diminished soul. In this series, I'm treating the soul as the perfect gift James referred to when he wrote, "Every good endowment and every perfect gift is from above, coming down from the Father of lights, with whom there is no variation or shadow due to change." Here we're not talking about coming down from the sky. We're talking about projecting or individualizing the pure light of the soul from its universal source, much like a beam of sunlight shining through a window. We're treating the soul as the image and likeness of God, no evolution required. The body obviously experiences fluctuations in health and energy levels. The soul experiences none of this. No variation or shadow due to change. It operates at full capacity at all times and through all of the ages. Though soul and body are presently integrated, the soul is not subject to any of the limitations we associate with the body. I'm sure this is why Paul pointed out to the Corinthians that flesh and blood can never possess the kingdom of God, and the perishable cannot possess immortality. It doesn't need to. This is not the body's purpose. The body is our soul's interface with the material realm. It's the physical vehicle that enables us to carry out whatever purpose we had for coming to this planet, a subject I'll expand on in another segment. Without a body, we couldn't communicate with another person. We couldn't enjoy a cup of tea. We couldn't even pick up a paperclip. Of course, we want our bodies to be as strong and healthy as possible. Proper nutrition, exercise, and an optimistic attitude toward life are all positive contributors to a healthy body. One of the most powerful healing realizations we can have is that our soul, always whole, healthy, and free, is imparting its healing light through every atom and cell of our body. Don't assume that fluctuations in the health of your body are really fluctuations within the soul. The responsible element here, as I've already indicated, is the body-based self-image. The soul is your body's strongest healing source. A lack of health in the body should never be interpreted as some kind of lack in the soul. Some will argue that the body must be raised to a higher vibratory rate, a process achieved through the spiritual refinement or regeneration of the soul. Most people today refer to this simply as raising of consciousness. And this is an important aspect of spiritual healing. I'm talking here about our treating the body's mortal condition as a reflection of the soul's supposed underdeveloped state. The theory is that when the consciousness is lifted and the soul is spiritually refined, the body breaks through the cycle of birth and death and never again faces the pain, trauma, and heartbreak we associate with death. Through the centuries, most who have sought the brass ring of perpetual youth and even physical immortality have taken a less philosophical approach. For example, there's always been the belief that certain sources of water held the power to rejuvenate the body. All one had to do was drink or bathe in the water. No consciousness lifting required. We've all heard of Spanish explorer Ponce de Leon's quest for the fountain of youth. In Jesus' day, many believed the pool of Bethesda had healing properties. If you were first to make it to the pool after the angel disturbed the waters, you'd be healed of your malady, which I assume would include the effects of old age. A modern-day equivalent is the spring in Lourdes, France, that many believe contains healing properties. Today, historians question the legend of Ponce de Leon, pointing out that in all of his writings, he never once mentions a search for the fountain of youth. And skeptics suggest that whether we're talking about the time of Jesus or today, it's faith that carries the real healing property. The water simply acts as a placebo. When tested, the water from Lourdes was shown to contain no unusual compounds. But who can doubt the power of faith of the 5 million pilgrims who visit the shrine each year? Neither can we doubt our obsession with anything and everything that hints at stopping and even reversing the aging process. It's estimated that by 2019, the global anti-aging market will be worth an astounding $191.7 billion US dollars. The question is, will all of this spending stop anyone from aging? Will it dramatically raise the expected average lifespan? Will our life-infusing affirmations, certain to increase our vitality, also significantly increase our lifespan? Lazarus may indeed have been raised from the dead, With our ever-improving resuscitation techniques, bringing people back from the brink of death has become almost routine. But if the body is intended to be immortal, why isn't Lazarus here today to tell us about it? So far, the plastic surgeons and regular injections of Botox can make us look younger. But is looking younger an actual reversal of biological aging? Some think there's a political solution to the problem of mortality. Beginning in 2012, pro-immortality political parties have organized in Russia, the United States, Israel, and the Netherlands. It doesn't appear they've gotten much traction at this point, but their aim is to provide political support to research and technologies focused on anti-aging and what they call radical life extension. They envision providing access to these technologies, currently non-existent, to the majority of people. Immortality for the masses. Let's assume for a moment that the dream of immortality is realized, either through spiritual means or through cellular engineering. Worldwide, there are around 154,000 deaths per day, compared to 353,000 births. There are approximately 7 billion of us on this planet right now. If we succeed in getting the death rate to zero, we'll be adding something like 129 million people a year. So let's put this in perspective. With around 24 million, China's Shanghai is the most highly populated city on Earth. We'd be adding about 5 Shanghais a year. How long would it take before we ran out of the resources needed to sustain so many immortal bodies? Even as immortals, we'll have to eat. We'll need clean water, clothing, shelter, transportation, cell phones, shopping malls, trash collection, landfills, and sewage treatment on an unprecedented scale. With all of this, of course, comes the mega bureaucracies with their libraries of new laws and regulations. Can you imagine? And what about retirement? The stats indicate that well over half of working Americans are unhappy in their jobs. Are we to assume this will change just because we attain immortality? At what age does an immortal retire? And how long would an immortal have to contribute to a 401k that allows them to retire forever? What about this problem of dwindling resources? Are we to believe that immortals, confronted with the problems of shortages at basic levels, will suddenly become more loving and less competitive than we mortals? Judging by our history, it's more likely that we'll see the proliferation of weapons of mass destruction. We'll want to protect what's ours, and maybe even take a little of what belongs to someone else. I'm pretty sure that not even immortals can survive a nuclear exchange. What if you lose a limb or two in an accident? What if you sustain permanent brain damage? Do you want to live eternally without some of your limbs or without full brain power? If you're immortal, You'll be able to wait around long enough for science to come up with replacement body parts, maybe even a way to reboot your brain. Of course, that could be 10, 25, or 50 years in the future. But what's 50 years to an immortal? Where does this end? Are we going to be happy with the same face, the same body style, the same gender, the same skin color for eternity? What if all of our beautiful tattoos go out of style? So we start thinking about the ability to manufacture replacement body parts. When this happens on a large scale, and I have no doubt that it will, we'll start thinking of the body in terms of biological machinery. And this may not be such a bad thing. When we're replacing all those body parts, maybe we'll notice that our central eye never breaks down. Maybe science will see that when they upgrade that memory chip for the brain's owner is something different from their brain. What about immortals and natural disasters? There have been at least 5 major extinctions and many minor ones in Earth's history, all brought on by natural causes. Can immortal humans survive earthquakes, volcanoes, tsunamis, hurricanes, tornadoes, massive fires, or drought? What about another well-placed asteroid, the kind that helped send the dinosaurs to extinction 65 million years ago? In more recent years, who can forget the 2004 Indian Ocean earthquake that triggered a tsunami and claimed the lives of 250,000 people? Astronomers, geologists, and meteorologists keep telling us that these things will happen again and again. It's never a question of if, but of when and where. Our scientists and politicians scramble to prepare for these catastrophic events. But when they occur, as we saw in 2004, our efforts to minimize the death and destruction seem so small. Today we see cities growing up around Earth's known danger zones. Mass evacuation plans that look good on a government desk are still likely to play out as a nightmare scenario. It's conceivable that even if we solve the problem of mortality, a single catastrophic event caused by humans or by nature could easily send the death rate far beyond what it is today. I'm not trying to draw a bleak doomsday picture here. I'm just pointing out that our attempts to breathe the breath of eternal life into the physical body has the potential for creating more problems than it solves. What strikes me here is that we're really talking about a modern-day Tower of Babel. The ego-centered self-image, thinking it can build a better universe. All of this is generated out of the brain-centered model of the human being. The obsession with physical immortality is strongest with those who see the body as the central feature of who and what they are. This includes most of those who embrace the current scientific model that assumes the brain is responsible for producing consciousness, that the death of the brain means the end of the person. As we've seen, with our focus on the body, the notion of achieving physical immortality abounds with questions and potential problems. With our focus on the soul, these questions are resolved. The soul is not subject to the laws of time and space or to the principles of supply and demand. The soul doesn't age. It's not subject to disease, poverty, discord in relationships, hunger, or the need for clothing, shelter, and transportation. The body, our soul's interface with the material plane, is subject to all of these things. Considering the upkeep and restrictions associated with the body, we're paying a price for taking it on. But I believe every one of us had our reasons for doing so. We understood the price, and we were willing to pay it. Otherwise, we wouldn't have taken on this body. Near-death research is a field of study that sheds much light on this subject. This research provides a powerful insight into the nature of our soul, not as it can be at the end of some very long evolutionary process, but as it is right now. In part 2 of the body-soul connection, I'll share some thoughts and examples of why I think this research can add an important dimension to our spiritual understanding.